POV, Elara. The palace of House Vale was nothing like the world Elara knew. The air here was still, thick with candle smoke and blood-scented perfumes. Even the walls whispered secrets. Elara moved carefully, clutching the edge of her torn apron as she was led into the grand hall. A vampire but born to poverty, she had never seen such marble, such silence. "You'll serve the prince," the steward said, his voice sharp. "He doesn't like noise. He doesn't like pity. And he doesn't like mistakes." She wanted to ask, what does he like then? But she bit her tongue. The door creaked open. The chamber beyond was dim, lit only by a dying fire. A man sat by the hearth, pale, elegant, motionless. His eyes, though open, stared into nothing. Lucien Vale. The blind prince. POV, Lucien. He heard her before he smelled her. Her heart, quick, uneven, like a frightened bird trapped in a cage. Most maids trembled around him, their fear was loud. But hers had a strange rhythm. It fluttered and then slowed, as if she tried to calm herself. "You're late," he said quietly. She froze. He smiled faintly, not kindly, but knowingly. He didn't need eyes to see her stiffness, her small gasp, her uncertainty. "I was told to come at once, Your Grace." Her voice was soft. Honest. It didn't bend with practiced flattery like the others. "Pour the wine. Don't spill it." He listened to the gentle clink of glass, the way her breath caught as she poured. Not a single drop fell. Interesting. POV, Elara. She could feel his gaze even though she knew he couldn't see. His milky eyes were turned toward the fire, but every nerve in her body burned as if he watched her. "Do you know who I am?" he asked. "The prince," she whispered. "The blind one," he corrected. His tone wasn't cruel, just tired. Like someone who'd already accepted every insult the world could offer. She gathered courage. "Blindness doesn't make you less of a prince, my lord." He turned sharply. For a moment, the mask slipped. Surprise, then a ghost of amusement. "You speak boldly for a servant." "Maybe because I've nothing to lose," she said quietly. Something in him shifted. POV, Lucien. No one had spoken to him like that in years. Usually, people whispered pity behind smiles. But this girl, her heartbeat betrayed truth. Not fear. Not desire. Just humanity. "What's your name?" "Elara." "Elara," he repeated, tasting it like a secret. He reached out suddenly. "May I?" She hesitated, then stepped closer. He brushed his fingers along her cheek, tracing the curve of her face, down to her jaw. Soft. Warm. Real. "You flinched," he murmured. "I wasn't expecting you to touch me." "Neither was I." His hand dropped, as if it had betrayed him. POV, Elara. Her heart raced so fast she thought he could hear it, and maybe he did, because his lips curved slightly. "You have a loud heart, Elara." "I didn't know hearts could be loud," she replied. "Yours is," he said. "It sounds like sunlight." She didn't understand what that meant, but her chest ached anyway. That night, when she left his chambers, she could still feel his touch, the ghost of cold fingers on her skin. And he, alone by the fire, listened to the echo of her footsteps fading into the hall, realizing something terrifying. He wanted to hear her heart again. Lucien hated how aware he'd become of sound. Every whisper in the palace carried lies. Every footstep meant pity. But now there was one sound he couldn't ignore, her. He told himself it was curiosity. Nothing more. She wasn't beautiful, or so the courtiers whispered, but she moved differently. Without fear. He remembered the softness of her cheek beneath his fingers and cursed himself for remembering it at all. "You may return," he said the next night, pretending it was for convenience. "Someone must read to me," he added, a lie, since he'd long stopped listening to books. When she entered, her steps were hesitant, careful. The faint scent of wildflowers followed her. "What shall I read, my lord?" "Anything," he said. "Just not silence." The prince didn't frighten her anymore, not exactly. He confused her. He could be cruel one moment, distant the next. But when she read, his face softened, his shoulders relaxed. Sometimes he would stop her mid-sentence to ask strange questions. What color is the fire? Orange and gold. Describe it, he'd demand. So she did. The sound, the movement, the warmth. He listened like a starving man. One night, she dared to ask. Do you miss seeing? A pause. Then quietly. No. I miss being seen. Her throat tightened. She didn't know how to answer that. He could sense her pity like a blade. It wasn't cruel, but he despised it all the same. He tried to push her away, to make her hate him. You think my blindness makes you special? That I need your voice? She flinched, murmuring. No, my lord. I just thought you might be lonely. Lonely. The word hit harder than any insult. He dismissed her abruptly. But when she left, he realized something unsettling. The room was emptier without her. She cried that night. Not because of his words, but because she saw the truth behind them, the isolation, the quiet ache. She'd seen nobles with cruelty in their eyes, but the prince's cruelty was defense, not nature. Still, she promised herself. I will do my duty. Nothing more. Yet when dawn came and the steward asked who would serve the prince that night, her voice answered before her mind could stop it. I will. The prince had not called for her in 4 nights. 4 nights of silence. 4 nights of pretending she didn't wait for the knock on her door. When the summons finally came, she almost didn't go. He sat by the fire again, still as stone. His hair was unbound tonight, silver-black against pale skin. She noticed his hands, long, elegant, clenched tight around a goblet of untouched blood. You kept me waiting, he said flatly. You didn't summon me, she replied before she could stop herself. The room froze. No one spoke to him like that. Not even nobles. Lucien tilted his head slightly, as though weighing her words by sound alone. You're bold tonight. You taught me to speak truth, my lord. Her voice was calm, but her pulse betrayed her, fast and loud. He heard it, of course. He always did. Her defiance irritated him. And intrigued him. He had dismissed her, thinking distance would quiet his thoughts. It hadn't. Instead, her absence had filled the palace with unbearable silence. Now, she stood before him, daring, breathing, alive, and every word from her mouth scraped at his control. You mistake my tolerance for permission, he said. I mistake your silence for loneliness, she countered softly. Her tone wasn't disrespectful, it was heartbreakingly honest. Lucien turned away, jaw tightening. Do not speak of what you don't understand. Then let me understand. The words struck him like lightning, because she meant them. He rose from his chair suddenly. For the first time, she realized how tall he truly was, how his presence filled the room, not with menace, but with grief. He approached her slowly, each step deliberate. Her instinct said to step back, but pride kept her still. He stopped close enough that she could feel the cold aura of his skin. Do you know what happens to those who defy me? He whispered. I'm still here, aren't I? His breath caught. For a heartbeat, she thought he might strike her, but instead, his hand lifted, stopping inches from her face. You're trembling. So are you, she whispered. The silence that followed was thick enough to break her heart. Then he turned away, his voice clipped. Leave. When the door closed behind her, he let out the breath he'd been holding. Her scent lingered, the faintest trace of human blood mixed with wildflower soap. He wanted to hate her. He wanted to forget her. But all he could hear, even through the heavy silence, was that steady, defiant heartbeat echoing in his head. Outside the door, she pressed her back to the wall, eyes burning. She'd stood up to him, and yet, it didn't feel like victory. Because in that brief moment, when he had leaned close, she hadn't felt fear. She had felt sadness. A man pretending not to need anyone, and a woman foolish enough to care. Queen Seraphine stood in the doorway, draped in black velvet and jewels that looked like drops of blood. Her beauty was terrifying, ageless, cruel. Elara bowed so deeply she nearly touched the floor. Your Majesty. The Queen's hand brushed her chin upward, forcing her to meet her gaze. Ah. pretty enough in the right light. Tell me, girl, does my son whisper your name when he sleeps? Elara's blood ran cold. No, my queen. Pity, the queen murmured, smiling. I thought blindness came with better taste. Laughter rippled through the hall, sharp, poisonous. Elara didn't answer. She couldn't. He sensed her before she spoke. The queen's perfume always arrived first, thick with roses and rot. Mother. My darling boy, she cooed. I met your little maid today. Sweet thing. She trembled beautifully. Stay away from her. The room went still. Seraphine's voice turned icy. You forget yourself. She's a servant. They exist to be used. She's mine, he hissed, then realized too late what he'd said. The queen smiled, slow and wicked. Then I'll make her useful to you, my son. She shall serve at tomorrow's feast. Lucien froze. He knew what that meant. The feast wasn't for food. It was for blood. No, he said sharply. Oh, don't worry, she purred. We'll only take a little. The next night, the hall was filled with vampires, nobles in crimson and gold, laughter echoing off marble walls. Humans and low-born vampires knelt along the edges, offering wrists to the nobles' fangs. Elara stood trembling among them, forced into a silk gown too fine for her. When the queen announced her name, she felt every gaze turn toward her, and then his voice. Stop. Lucien's tone sliced through the music. He rose from his throne, blind eyes facing the crowd. No one touches her. Whispers filled the room. The queen's smile didn't falter. You would embarrass your court over a maid. Over anyone you would harm, he said. Elara's knees gave out. She didn't faint. She simply couldn't breathe. When the hall emptied, he found her shaking behind the columns. Why did you do that? She whispered. You've made her hate me more. Let her. She was already looking for a reason. He reached out, stopping just short of touching her. You don't let people see you bleed, Elara. Not her. Not anyone. And you. I've been bleeding for years, he murmured. I just learned to hide it. When she returned to her quarters that night, she stared at her hands, still trembling. He had risked his mother's wrath for her. She didn't know what frightened her more, the queen's cruelty, or the fact that she now cared what happened to him. The palace had changed since the feast. Servants whispered when she passed. Some pitied her, others envied her. The queen had gone silent, too silent. And the prince hadn't summoned her for days. She told herself she didn't care. She lied. When the summons finally came, she entered his chamber expecting tension, but found him sitting by the fire, no crown, no armor, no mask. You're early, he said. You didn't give a time. You came anyway. His tone wasn't cruel. It was tired, softer than she'd ever heard it. He could feel the exhaustion in her voice. He hated that it was his fault. Did she hurt you? He asked quietly. Not yet, she said. She will. Then I'll survive that too. He almost smiled. Her resilience unsettled him. He'd known warriors with less courage than this poor maid. Sit, he said, motioning toward the chair by the fire. I shouldn't. That wasn't a request. When she sat, he asked. What does the fire look like tonight? It's softer, she said after a moment. Like gold melted into air. Describe more. It's warm enough to make the shadows gentle. He nodded slowly. Gentle shadows, he repeated, as if the phrase itself warmed him. He leaned back in his chair, eyes half closed. For the first time, she saw what he looked like without the weight of control, younger, almost human. Why do you always want to hear about the fire? Because it never judges, he said. It burns everything the same. There was silence, then, unexpectedly, a small, dry laugh from him. You sound surprised, he said. I've never heard you laugh. Neither have I, he admitted. For a fleeting moment, the world felt light. They weren't prince and maid, predator and servant, just two lonely souls by a fire, pretending the world was kind. Her laughter was small but real. It echoed in the dark like sunlight through a crack in stone. He didn't touch her, he couldn't. But when she rose to leave, he said quietly, "Elara." She turned, waiting. "Thank you for speaking to me like I'm still a man." Her lips parted, but no sound came. She only bowed, deeper than before, and left. He sat long after she was gone, listening to the faint memory of her voice. The summons came at dawn, unusual and ominous. 2 guards appeared at her quarters. They said nothing. They didn't need to. When the doors of the Queen's Hall opened, the scent of blood hit first. Queen Seraphine sat on her throne like a goddess carved from cruelty. "Elara of the lower courts," the Queen said sweetly. "You have been found guilty of impropriety." Elara's knees trembled. "I don't understand, Your Majesty." "You touched what is not yours." Her words were silk and venom. Before Elara could speak, 2 guards seized her arms. A whip cracked through the air, the sound of leather slicing silence. She didn't scream. She refused. But tears fell anyway. "This is mercy," the Queen said. "Next time, I'll take your hands." He heard the sound before he was told, the sound of a whip, the muffled gasps, the echo of a heartbeat breaking. When his steward stammered out the truth, Lucien's composure shattered. He stormed through the corridors like a storm with fangs. Guards scattered. Doors slammed open. He found her in the dungeons, kneeling, trembling, her back a canvas of crimson lines. For the first time in centuries, his voice trembled. "Who did this?" "Don't," she whispered. "Please don't make it worse." He reached out, hands shaking as he removed his cloak and wrapped it around her. His voice was low, but deadly. "She will regret this." "No," Elara gasped. "If you fight her, she'll destroy you." "Then let her." He carried her through the halls despite her protests, blind, furious, unstoppable. No one dared approach. He brought her to his chambers and locked the door. When she tried to sit up, he knelt before her, his voice breaking for the first time. "I told you not to bleed for them." "You told me not to let them see it," she murmured. "They saw too much." He reached for a cloth and carefully cleaned her wounds. His fingers were cold, gentle, trembling. When his hand brushed her skin, she shivered, not from pain, but from something deeper. "Why do you care?" she whispered. "Because you make me remember what I was before blindness, before this crown." He stopped himself, lowering his voice to a whisper. "And that's dangerous." He wanted to tell her everything, the nightmares, the loneliness, the walls he built around himself. But instead, he simply said, "Rest here. No one will touch you again." When she drifted to sleep, he sat beside her, listening to her breathing. He should have felt control returning. He didn't. He felt fear. For the first time in his immortal life, he was afraid of losing someone. The palace no longer felt like his own. Every whisper of silk or step on marble carried judgment, the sound of his mother's eyes watching. He had broken a royal command for a servant. But he would do it again. Elara's scent lingered in his chambers, lavender, ash, and blood. He could sense her every movement, the slow rise and fall of her breath as she slept. He told himself it was duty, protection. But when she stirred in pain, he realized it was more. "You shouldn't still be here," she murmured weakly. "You shouldn't still be alive," he replied, tone gentle but heavy. "Then why am I?" "Because I forbade death to touch you." Her soft laugh was almost a sob. "You can't command death, my prince. Watch me." Days passed. Her wounds began to heal, though some were deeper than skin. Lucien stayed near, not as her master, but as her shadow. He brought her food himself, awkwardly, fumbling with trays. She tried not to smile. One evening, she found him sitting by the window, head tilted toward the moonlight. "Does the moon look different when you can't see it?" she asked softly. "No," he said. "It still finds ways to burn." She hesitated, then sat beside him. The silence between them was comfortable now, no longer heavy. "Why do you always sit in the light?" she asked. "Because I want to remember what it feels like." For a long time, neither spoke. Then, in a whisper, "You make me want to see again." Her heart stopped. "Lucien." "Don't," he said gently. If you say my name like that, I'll forget who I'm supposed to be. Her heartbeat was loud, beautiful. He could hear every tremor, every unspoken word. He wanted to reach for her hand. Instead, he curled his fingers against his own thigh, restraining himself. Elara, he said after a pause, if I asked you to run, would you? Run from what? Me. No. He turned his face toward her, though blind, she felt his gaze like touch. Why not? Because you're the only one who looks at me and doesn't see dirt. Silence. Then, slowly, Lucien smiled, a rare, broken thing. Then promise me something. Anything. If I lose control, if I ever hurt you, promise you'll kill me. Her eyes widened. I can't. You must. Then you promise me something, she whispered. Name it. Don't give me a reason to. The call of the blood horns echoed through the palace. He had known this day would come, the day his mother summoned the Council of Blood. The court gathered in the Hall of Crimson Thrones, nobles, elders, and generals who had served his family for centuries. Each one whispered as he entered, guided by the echo of his steps. He wore no crown, no armor. Only a black tunic, clean but simple. His blindness was obvious, he made no effort to hide it. At the center sat Queen Seraphine, her presence like ice carved into human shape. Lucien of House Noctera, she said, her voice steady. You stand accused of violating royal decree, consorting with a servant, and defying the throne. Lucien bowed slightly, not in submission, but in acknowledgement. Then I stand guilty. Gasps rippled through the hall. Seraphine's lips barely moved. You do not deny it? There is nothing to deny, he said. You call it defiance. I call it truth. Truth, her voice sharpened. You risk a kingdom for a maid. Lucien turned his face toward her. Though he could not see her, his voice found its mark. You risk your soul for a crown. We all make sacrifices. The chamber fell silent. Even the candles seemed to hesitate. They dragged her into the hall moments later, hands bound, blood still on her lip from a guard's lesson. The sight before her made her knees weak, hundreds of eyes, all fixed on the blind prince standing alone. Your Majesty, please, she begged, falling to her knees. He did nothing wrong. If you must punish someone, punish me. Lucien's voice cut through the hall like thunder. She will not be punished for loving what your laws forbid. The nobles roared in outrage. Blasphemy. Treason. The queen raised a hand, and silence obeyed. Her voice trembled only slightly. You would destroy the bloodline over affection. Lucien turned his head, and though his eyes were pale and unseeing, his words saw through everything. I would rather end our bloodline than let it drown in fear. For the first time in centuries, her son's words cut her open. She remembered another voice, Cedric's, gentle, defiant, whispering in that same hall long ago. Love doesn't destroy kingdoms, Seraphine. It saves them. And she had watched him die for it. Now her son stood where Cedric once stood, the same conviction, the same calm. For the first time, she felt something dangerous, doubt. You think love will save you, my son, she said quietly. No, he replied. It already has. He stepped closer, until he could feel the weight of her presence, the cold air, the crown, the fear she carried like armor. Mother, he said softly, I was born blind. You taught me to see with cruelty. But he turned slightly toward Elara, she made me see with something far greater. Seraphine's voice broke, almost imperceptibly. And what is that? Faith. For a moment, the queen saw not a rebellious prince, but her son, small again, fragile and trembling, clinging to her dress. Her heart twisted, remembering the nights she whispered, Don't love, Lucien. It hurts too much. Now he was proving her wrong, and it terrified her. Enough, she said finally, her voice heavy. Elara will not be executed, yet. The council erupted in confusion. Your Majesty. Silence. Seraphine's eyes, fierce and unreadable, lingered on Lucien. You have until the next moon to prove that what you call love will not destroy this kingdom. Fail, and you both perish. As guards led her away, her gaze met Lucien's, blind eyes that somehow saw her better than anyone ever had. He whispered, so only she could hear. A moon is long enough for miracles. Her lips trembled into a smile. Then let's make one. The palace had never felt so loud. Every servant whispered about the queen's hesitation. Every noble doubted her resolve. And for the first time in 1,000 years, Seraphine let them. She sat in her chamber before a mirror, one she no longer recognized. One moon, she whispered to her reflection. One moon to prove love is not ruin. But something inside her twisted, curiosity, perhaps, or memory. She called for her guards. Follow her, she ordered. The maid. Watch her every move. And for the first time, she wanted not proof of guilt, but proof of heart. Elara spent her days quietly tending to Lucien. She avoided the eyes of the court, the cruelty of whispers, the weight of judgment. But when night came, she and Lucien spoke softly in the dark, stories, laughter, fragments of dreams they'd never dared share aloud. Do you miss sight? She asked one night. Sometimes, he said. But sometimes I think the dark lets me feel what others overlook. And what do you feel now? You. Her breath caught. He smiled, gentle, not demanding, simply there. For once, she didn't flinch from affection. What she didn't know was that they were being watched. Hidden behind enchanted glass, Queen Seraphine saw everything, the way Elara's trembling hands healed her son's scars, the way Lucien listened to her as though she were the only sound left in the world. And in that moment, something in Seraphine cracked, envy, grief, and awe all at once. Cedric, she whispered to the empty air, this is what we once were. Lucien felt it, the tension in the air, the way the guards lingered outside his doors longer each night. She's watching, he said softly. Should we be afraid? Elara asked. No, he murmured. If she's watching, it means she still cares. He reached for her hand. She let him. Do you know what she fears most? What? That I'll be like my father. Was he cruel? No, Lucien said. He was kind. Elara smiled faintly. Then perhaps that's not something to fear. He leaned closer, brushing his forehead against hers. If kindness is rebellion, then let's rebel together. That night, Seraphine descended from her throne quietly, no guards, no crown, no armor. She found Elara alone in the courtyard, folding linens under moonlight. Your Majesty, Elara gasped, bowing so quickly the fabric fell. Stand up, the queen said. I didn't come to kill you. Elara straightened, heart racing. Seraphine studied her, this small, fragile girl who'd brought a prince to his knees. You love my son, Seraphine said flatly. Yes. Even knowing it could destroy you. It already has, Elara whispered. And I would do it again. Something shifted, the kind of silence that follows truth. You remind me of someone, Seraphine said after a pause. Your Majesty. A fool who believed love could make the night less cruel. Was he wrong? He died believing it. Seraphine turned to leave, but stopped when Elara spoke softly. Then maybe it's time someone lived believing it instead. The queen froze, words hitting harder than any blade. She said nothing, only looked up at the moon and whispered. Perhaps. The night of the blood moon arrived, the night their fate would be decided. The palace was silent except for the slow tolling of the hour bells. Lucien stood before the throne, tall, composed, but pale as ash. She wanted to run to him, to hold him, but the hall was filled with nobles, guards, and the eyes of eternity. The queen entered last, her crown glimmering like frozen fire. But her face was no longer carved from ice. Lucien of Noctera, she began, voice carrying through the hall. You were given one moon to prove that what you call love is not a threat to our kind. Lucien bowed his head slightly. And have I failed, mother? The queen's gaze shifted to Elara, standing trembling beside the guards. Then, to everyone's shock, Seraphine descended from her throne. Each step she took was heavy with memory. She saw her son not as a ruler, but as the boy who used to stumble in the dark searching for her hand. I once believed love was weakness, she said quietly. I taught you to rule with fear, to bury your heart before the world could wound it. She turned toward the court, the same nobles who had whispered for her to execute them both. But perhaps I was the one who ruled blindly. Gasps echoed through the hall. This maid, she continued, gesturing to Elara, defied pain for him. This son defied death for her. If such devotion threatens us, then our kingdom deserves to fall. The council fell silent, no one dared move. And then, softly, I will not destroy what is pure simply because I've forgotten how to believe in it. He heard every word, and for the first time, he felt light around him. Not the light of flame or moon, but something warm and alive. Mother, he said softly, I thought you'd never forgive me. I'm not forgiving you, Lucien, she said, voice trembling. I'm asking you to forgive me. He reached forward, hands finding her face. She stiffened, then broke, just a little. You always told me to see through the dark, he whispered. Now I finally do. And then he turned toward Elara. Come here. She hesitated, then stepped closer. He took her hands, holding them against his chest. Elara, in every darkness, I heard your heartbeat first. It became my compass, my sight, my truth. She cried, quietly, beautifully. Lucien. I don't need eyes to see you, he said, smiling faintly. I never did. She looked upon them, the son she nearly lost to her own fear, the girl who brought color back into her night, and something inside her softened for good. She reached up, removing her crown, and placed it gently on the steps below the throne. Let the kingdom be ruled by those who still believe, she whispered. Then she turned to her son. You may not see the world, Lucien, but I believe you see it better than any of us. That night, in the quiet of the royal garden, the three of them stood beneath the moonlight. No guards. No judgment. Only peace. Lucien reached out, fingers tracing the petals of a white rose. Describe it to me, he said softly. It's pale, Elara said. Like light trapped in bloom. Then it's perfect, he murmured. Queen Seraphine watched from a distance, whispering to herself. Perhaps sight isn't in the eyes after all. Elara turned toward her prince, smiling through tears. What do you see now? You, he said simply. Always you. Years passed, and the kingdom of Noctera changed with them. No longer ruled by fear, but by compassion. Prince Lucien, now King Lucien, walked the palace gardens each night, Elara's hand always guiding his. But anyone watching could see, it was he who kept her steady. Their bond, once forbidden, had become the heart of a new era. The Queen Mother often visited, not with judgment, but with pride. Her once cold eyes now softened whenever she heard Lucien laugh, or saw Elara smile. Lucien would sit with Elara beneath the white roses, their petals forever glowing like captured moonlight. He traced her face gently, memorizing every line again and again. Do you regret choosing me? She once whispered. Regret, he smiled. I would choose you in every lifetime, even blind, even broken, even forbidden. She pressed her forehead against his. And I would love you, even if loving you destroyed me. They kissed, slow, deep, eternal. A love that started in shadows, now guiding an entire kingdom into dawn. The blind vampire king didn't rule with eyes. He ruled with something far stronger. A heart that finally learned how to see. And beside him, always. The maid who became his world. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, made you cry, made you believe in love again, please like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional vampire romances and dark love tales. Your support helps these stories live forever. Don't forget to turn on notifications bell so you never miss the next chapter of love and darkness.